Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that we're recording this interview at the Bobby Van Grill in lovely downtown D.C. with 94% humidity. And our guests are Jamie Holcomb, COO of Electrosoft, and Steve Riley, Vice President and Field CTO of Netskope, Netskope. Gentlemen, you ready to have some fun?
Yes.
Good. Great. Everyone's in this town talking about AI. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. I thought we'd pull back and talk about some of the implications about AI for the federal government. I think it'd be appropriate to have a person who has a little bit of experience in the federal government, because everyone knows Jamie spent time at the patent office, and he's got a good reputation in town because of that. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. Talk about different things. There is a report from Market Connections about policy to practice, operationalizing zero trust for the federal government. So that's an important topic we're going to cover today. Yeah. But because, Jamie, you're the big dog in these parts, we're going to start with you first. You were CIO at the Patent and Trade Office from 2019 to 2025, and now advise agencies from the outside at Electrosoft. How has your view of AI readiness changed once you stepped outside the building? Elvis is not in the building anymore, huh?
It is crazy. I am so amazed at the speed at which AI is moving. It is a race as well as a war of attrition. If you're not first, you're last, according to Ricky Bobby. But I will say that two of my favorite individuals, a guy named Jerry Ma, who was my chief AI officer at the Patent Office, and my CTO, Stefan Mitchev, who was at the Patent Office as well, they have both left, and they are now at Perplexity. And one of the things they told me at Perplexity was that they are cannibalizing every quarter, even every 30 days, any of the old functionality that they introduced. So can you imagine the government doing something like that? Like, if you deploy something in 30 days, you're going to get rid of it at the end of 30 days because you've got better, faster, and cheaper functionality now. So it's an amazing time, the difference between the government speed of execution and the commercial speed of execution.
Steve, when I was in classroom, I used to tell my students that in order to be terrific, you got to be specific. So I'm going to give
I like that line.
I'm going to give you a specific number here. 78% of the federal leaders recently surveyed agreed that AI tools and agents should be managed like users or devices inside zero trust. So what does that look like, I guess, architecturally? What does it actually mean to give an AI agent an identity?
So think about it this way. Actors perform work on systems. This is like the shortest summary of computing you could have. But for most of the history of computing, the actors have been humans, the carbon-based units that create lovely podcasts like this and speak at events and seminars. And maybe half of 1% of those actors might have been servers that could possess an identity. But now what we're seeing is this explosion of what the industry calls non-human identities. And the projection is that for every human, there might be between 10 and 100 agents, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. And these are actors on systems. Now, we in the computer industry have basically built all of our security controls under the fact that the actor, the human, has an identity that the actor can present and that the system can verify. That's sort of like the best way to describe it. Now we have these, 10-fold, 100-fold increase in another kind of actor that lacks an identity that it can express and the system can verify. Now, many people are thinking about this. It's a huge challenge, but I'm really pleased that lately there have been some technology introductions that really go a long way toward bringing agents, these non-human things, into what we would call a first-class citizen in our identity management frameworks, in the mechanisms we use to grant and control access that are all based on identity. And now we can treat these things as another kind of actor, just like humans are.
My question is to the carbon-based form named Jamie in front of me. So, Jamie, this survey we mentioned, the GovX survey, it found that only 31% of federal IT leaders report high visibility into public AI tools, and just 24% of them into API-driven AI activity. So, you've been in the seat here. From having run a federal IT shop, what's really behind that blind spot? Is it tools? Is it policy? Is it culture? I mean, eeny, meeny, miny? Which one is it?
So I think it has a lot to do with the incentive structure behind the federal bureaucracy. So what does that mean? There is no incentive to go out and innovate when you're trying to spend the least amount of money to get the most mission. So it's very difficult to figure out what should be priority when you're trying new and emerging technology like AI. So unless you have a specific mission outcome or an impact, it's very difficult for the system to get behind a pilot. What's it trying to show you? Okay, how does it affect the mission? And more so than not, what I did at the patent office was create 3 different use cases. 1, classification, 2, search, and 3, fraud detection. In those cases, that was linked very strongly to the mission that the patent examiners needed to use. That's what needs to happen elsewhere. The federal government has to get out of their pilots and into operations, measuring results and impact that's meaningful to the taxpayer, including getting rid of a lot of administrative and clerical cost. So much of the federal bureaucracy is only doing compliance, and they're not paying attention to the mission.
Steve, we're in downtown D.C., kind of surrounded by federal agencies. Back to the survey we talked about. Less than a third of agencies have integrated AI into their existing zero trust controls. So from where you sit, what's the single biggest technical gap between zero trust for users and zero trust for AI?
Well, at the risk of repeating myself and ourselves, I would say it's the identity challenge. Here's the way I characterize zero trust. It's ensuring that the right people have the right access to the right resources at the right times for the right reasons. Zillions of words have been spilled and spoken on what is zero trust, but that's what it is. It surrounds this notion of 5 rights. Well, now we need to modify that a little bit. It's the 5. It's the right people and agents have the right access to the right resources at the right times for the right reasons. And how do we bring those agents in? We've got to give them an identity. But it isn't just the identity of the agent. I want to propose to your listeners that what we need is this notion of a blended identity, where anytime a non-human is going to interact with something, we need to know not only who the non-human is, but also the human who invoked it. Because then that way we can answer interesting questions like, is Jamie allowed to use this agent to perform this task right now? Otherwise, if we don't have this notion of who invoked the agent, then it's very, very difficult to fully implement the zero trust strategy that I know has been so important and successful for agencies, and that's where they need to look. And what's cool is once the non-human actors can express an identity, then everything else that agencies and departments have set up to effect their zero trust strategies will work. No other changes are really necessary when we're thinking about what a zero trust strategy can do.
So, Jamie, I mentioned we're at a restaurant here on 12th Street. By my scientific reckoning, it's probably about 4 blocks from the White House. And the White House has something called a Gold Eagle Initiative. And it's standing up an AI-powered vulnerability clearinghouse across Treasury, CISA, and DOW. So from an agency operator's seat, what will it take for something like Gold Eagle to actually change outcomes rather than add another coordination layer?
Well, I prepared myself on this question because I looked up Gold Eagle, and I thought it was really interesting. So, success comes down to action, not architecture. Agencies do not need another dashboard. They need timely intelligence connected directly to operational decisions. Gold Eagle must shorten the time between detection and remediation. It must provide trusted data, clear accountability, and measurable outcomes. If operators receive actionable guidance and leaders remove all those barriers, results will follow. If it just becomes a reporting exercise, the mission will not move. The value is in execution, not coordination alone.
I got to ask Steve the Gold Eagle question, too. So Gold Eagle, combined with Executive Order 14409, are pushing agencies toward AI-enabled defensive tooling. So how should agencies balance adopting frontier AI for defense with the new attack surface AI itself introduces?
A buddy of mine mentioned to me recently that he has formed the opinion that AI presents more opportunities for defenders of information systems to do their work than AI presents attackers to compromise something. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I feel like that's maybe a sort of a counter narrative to what many of us have been told. But the more I ponder this, the more I process this, when I think about the fact that attackers, their job is actually already pretty easy. They need to find only one vulnerability, and then depending on the underlying architecture, they might be able to go farther than that, which is why I'm a huge fan of zero trust strategies, because they prevent that ability they mitigate that ability to move laterally. When I think about attacker or defenders, remember, we as defenders, we have to find and fix everything. We don't have the luxury of just fixing one thing and letting everything else remain unfixed. So what AI can do for us is accelerate the ability to find all of the things that we need to fix, that we need to modernize, that we need to make better, in a way that might finally be at the same velocity as an attacker. And sort of adjacent to that, recently, I was conducting a survey with some of our customers, and they are really keen to be using AI tools to help identify vulnerabilities and exploits, and use that in their SOC as a way to make their SOC analysts faster. But they have absolutely no interest yet in letting the AI do the remediation. And so maybe one way we can think about this is that while agents are great for gathering, assimilating, and assessing information, agents themselves should not have agency just yet. We need to ensure that the humans are in the loop and that the right decisions are made to ensure that we are protecting our assets appropriately.
So get your pen out here. So agents should not have agency. A wise man once said that. I think that was your quote. You're quoting yourself here, Steve, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, I can't claim credit for that. I was reading a recent Reddit thread on business use of AI and how there's a lot of push right now from executive leaders to use AI as much as possible, whereas the folks actually in the trenches who are responsible for deploying and administering this stuff are running into errors and bugs and problems. And it was someone in that Reddit thread who made the statement that agents should not have agency yet.
Good, yeah.
And that just formed a memory in my brain.
Well, Jamie, I got a quote for you to respond to, too. So there's a guy kind of well-known in town here named Alex Karp. And I think he was interviewed in a podcast a couple weeks back. And he talks about AI, and he said, with AI, privacy is fragile. And I think this is really important for the information that many of my listeners are dealing with. So tell me about fragility and AI. You think that's a valid statement?
I do. I was also the privacy officer at the Patent and Trademark Office. And privacy is a very keen thing to take care of. Why is it fragile? It's interesting from a cultural perspective. There's the tactical release of very personally identifiable information that no one wants to be taken advantage of course. But there's also the cultural impact of doxing and so forth, and the ability for others to take advantage of using that PII. Besides that, we're a nation based on our privacy, the ability for us to express our thoughts without having retribution or retaliation. So I do believe that in our AI governance, we have to ensure that there's no privacy breaches.
So, Jamie, you sat in the hot seat over at Patent and Trademark with the CIA spot there. So I got to ask you the deadline question, okay? It's going to come up. You know it's going to come up. This executive order I mentioned, 14409, it gave agencies 30 days to start hardening systems for advanced AI. So you having lived through mandates like this, how does an agency realistically move that fast without cutting corners. Something's not gonna fall off the truck, isn't it? How do you do it?
You have to move quickly by focusing on the highest risk areas first. So speed comes from preparation, standardization, and disciplined execution. Agencies should leverage existing cybersecurity controls, not just the sharing of a clearinghouse, right? But they need to treat the architectures and the proven governance rather than inventing new frameworks under pressure. The goal is not perfection in 30 days. The goal is meaningful risk reduction and a roadmap for continuous improvement. Strong teams know how to prioritize. They know where the immediate action creates the greatest protection for the mission. Having a clearinghouse is not the answer.
Steve, want to jump in here?
Yeah, that actually brings us a really interesting question that I'd want to explore with you for a moment. If you think about what we as InfoSec practitioners have done, you can maybe categorize it in a framework that consists of 3 elements. Protect, detect, react. Some people like to expand react into like respond and recover, but I like to keep it in one mainly because they all end with T, that alliteration, right? Protect, detect, react. It has been proposed more than 15 years ago that framework needs another element at the beginning. Predict, then protect, detect, react. Now, the problem is, while that sounded good in theory, no tools existed to do the prediction. Well, that's changed. It isn't so much a generative AI thing, it's a predictive AI thing, a different AI discipline. It's actually older than generative AI when you think about it. But this notion of using AI to predict where attackers might go next helps us accomplish 2 goals. One, we can fine-tune our preventive measures. They don't have to maybe be so broad, but what is it that attackers are going after right now? But if we do a better job of predicting and preventing, then that means we have fewer things
to remediate,
to detect and react to.
Yep.
I love this. And in fact, if I could maybe start my college career all over again, I would have gone into predictive AI, knowing at some point it would actually have a value in this really fascinating field of information security. How much of what you see in agencies and department work is acknowledging this notion that prediction is really going to help us now to do the other 3 things better?
So I think that is the purview of Cyber Command, NSA, and other high-speed cyber SOCs.
The predict side.
Yes, the predict side. And so I think it's actually coming into the commercial world now where those tools are becoming more available and people are beginning to see the light where they actually can do not only the predictive but the preventive. And that's important because so often all these preventive measures are like, it'll never happen to me, I'll just be better than the next guy. When you get cornered by a bear in the woods, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you. So many cyber enterprises just go on that alone. We really do need to be core preventive maintenance and get the basics down.
Well, Jamie, it's been a long time since I've been cornered by a bear in the woods. That's for sure.
So that's actually happened to you before.
No.
Tell us about your bear cornering.
But it hasn't been a long time since I've been in an airport. And before we began this interview, you told me about being in an airport and traveling around and speaking at groups all over the United States, in fact, all over the world. And so I think you talk about AI discovery, prompt output inspection, AI gateways, agentic brokers. So which of these are federal agencies not investing enough in right now?
I want to refocus our attention away from the Netskope product names or what should I do for what, or what should I buy, or what should I configure, because these are implementation details. The reality is that all of these AI applications have emerged built into SaaS applications now these days, and people are finding all kinds of ways to use AI to maybe do something a little faster or create a novel procedure that it sounds so cool and it seems so attractive, and it's like, I've been able to make my productivity so much better. we're falling into the classic trap of failing to appreciate what risks might attend to that innovation. And that's what we at Netskope really want to help bring our customers to be thinking about. It's why we've been doing the roadshow here. Is it, yes, we love to demonstrate our stuff. It's a lot of fun, and people get excited over seeing what we can do. But if we level it back up, and something that I always say when I'm in these interactions is that it's important for agencies and departments and companies to strike the right balance between staying secure and being innovative. And we can all imagine examples of where there's too much in one direction or too much in another direction, and that is never a good place to be. It's always going to be to a company or an agency's deficit or a detriment to be thinking that way. So if we can give our employees the tools they need to be innovative, but wrap some guardrails around that, wrap some policy layer around the AI tool interaction itself, then it means that we can corral this technology in such a fashion that it's doing what we want it to do, and we have a degree of confidence that it won't do something that we didn't ask it to do or that we didn't think not to ask it to do. That's why this ability of like something like a guardrail, although remember the term doesn't matter, this ability to divine the intent of so many of these agents, because they are actors who make decisions, is so crucial. And that's what I love to chat about with customers and mention in larger forums like this.
Jamie, I got a kind of a Washington, D.C. question for you, a federal government question for you. Survey data shows that there's a sharp civilian versus defense divide in AI readiness. So where do civilian agencies like the Patent Office have an edge, and where are they still behind?
Yeah, civilian agencies often have an advantage in the mission-focused experimentation because they work directly with large public-facing processes and a lot of high-volume data. It creates opportunities to improve service delivery and also workforce productivity. Where they can lag behind is the operational scale, security, and integration, as well as sustained investment compared with some defense organizations. The future belongs to agencies that can combine innovation with discipline. AI readiness is not about those who move first. It's about those who can deploy responsibly, securely, and repeatedly, while also delivering those measurable mission outcomes.
Steve, here in Washington, D.C., there's federal CISOs floating around here, and you might stumble on one on your way to the hotel this afternoon.
Probably.
Probably. So looking at the next 12 to 18 months, there's OMB M2410, NIST, AI, RMF, and now this Gold Eagle that Jamie is talking about. They all seem to be layering on top of each other. So what advice would you give to a CISO, a federal CISO? What one priority would you give them first?
I think the priority that I would give them first is the discovery angle. And remember, we had the three approaches to AI security in the presentations here today. My sense in interacting with agency CIOs and CISOs is that they don't know where all their AI is just yet. And before anyone can begin contemplating how to secure this, remember that you can't secure anything you don't know about. So learn where all that AI is. And I mentioned this earlier this morning, and I'll repeat it now. You're going to hear folks throw around terms like shadow AI, just like they did with shadow IT. I don't like that because what was called shadow IT is actually business IT. It's a business unit doing something that the IT department hadn't been prepared for yet, but the business unit needed it, so they went and did it. So it's really business IT. And we're seeing the same thing here with AI now. We have all these business-led AI initiatives, or in this case, mission-led AI initiatives that are largely still invisible to CIOs and CISOs. So get a handle on that, understand what's going on, ask the mission operators why this is important, and then do the right things. So let's get back to what I said earlier, strike that right balance between staying secure and being innovative.
Jamie would say start with why. I think that's what Jamie would say, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
Good. Now, if you're walking your dog and listening to this podcast and want to get more information, you can go over to Netskope, Netskope, and get tons of information. I would look for this Market Connections report, and this focuses on exactly the discussion we had this afternoon. It's called From Policy to Practice, Operationalizing Zero Trust for the Federal Government in the Age of AI, and I will put a link to this document in the show notes for this podcast. That's really good. And gentlemen, unfortunately, we are running out of information here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Jamie Holcomb, COO of Electrosoft, and Steve Riley, Vice President and Field CTO of Netskope, Netskope. Yeah!